Hey, what's good, y'all? It's C. Will with the Passive Income Network. And on this podcast, we talk about investments, business, and innovative technologies. So make sure y'all like this video. If you're listening to the audio, we appreciate you. Share it with a friend. And on this podcast, got a special guest coming, and we'll be talking about Algorand, which is perfect timing right now for those who are interested in Algorand. And then we'll dive into Tesla, one of the hot stocks in the stock market. Without further ado, let's bring our guest on the show. Welcome, Anmol.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Good. Doing amazing.
Yes, excellent. So it's been some exciting times in the crypto markets right now, and definitely for the stocks market as well. We're getting new all-time high. Things are popping. Before we dive in too deep, can you give the audience an introduction of like how long you've been in crypto and also what you do in the stock market?
Yeah, definitely. So for a living, I trade the stock market pretty actively. That's kind of my main thing that I do. I'm a trader and investor for both long-term as well as short-term. And then crypto wasn't really something that I was even interested in until I think this was in 2020 or 2021 is when I actually got interested. 21, I think it was after the whole thing had already happened. I think Algorand was like 80 cents or something at that point. So I think that's when I first originally got in. But that time I was mostly just trading it. So, when it had that move over $2 or $3, I got out and then I got back in. And then since then, I actually started looking into it. So like actually researching rather than just trading in and out based on charts. And then I was like, you know what? I think I got something here. I think there's something here. And then I pivoted and become like a long-term investor as it relates to Algorand or crypto. And then trading I still do actively, but for my stock side of things. And I work a lot in psychology with like fund managers and stuff on how to stay calm when they're risking, billions of dollars. So building a systematic trading plan. So I help them a lot in trading psychology.
Oh, that's excellent. I've been definitely dabbling into trading more and just like learning the ropes of how to do it. And I'm realizing, yes, psychology is very important of how to manage your emotions and not act, too crazy when you see something good or bad happening. Yeah. So let's definitely, we'll dive into that a little bit more too. So with Algorand, so what did you see when you was like, let me start to build a long-term position in Algorand? What stood out to you versus some of the other blockchains and cryptos out there?
Yeah, I think with a lot of the other blockchains, what I noticed was a lot of hype, like a lot of marketing. This is going to be the next big thing, or and even influencers that they had promoting it, like celebrities and all those things back in 2020 when the whole thing was booming. And I never liked that. Because, I can smell a pump and dump from far away. I've been in the stock market long enough. I've seen penny stocks. They have the similar vibe where the founders are always talking nicely about their thing, which they should. But then when I started researching into it, I realized that a lot of them don't actually have any use cases except for like JPEG images, NFTs, or, just basic stuff. Sure, they might have a bigger headway as it relates to NFTs and all that compared to Algorand. But I'm like, okay, what's actually going to be used? Right? Because for me, I'm not investing in it as a currency, right? Algorand's not a currency in my view. It's a blockchain. It's a technology play. So if it's a technology play, then I want to see, okay, who's actually going to use that underlying technology? So that was the biggest factor, right? And I saw that, okay, Algorand had actual real world use cases as opposed to just NFTs or hype or meme coins. And then the other thing I looked into was, quantum security, right? What's going to be future proof for quantum security? And then more importantly, if we're talking real world use cases, then the biggest things any blockchain needs to have is, finality, settlement, fast transactions, and low cost. And just recently, I tried using the Folks Finance XNet to try with the other chains, and I was like, oh my God, this just makes me feel even better about my investment. $30-$20 you're spending on like Ethereum or whatever for basic transactions. And then you're waiting like 10 minutes that it's confirming or whatever. Whereas I do it on Algorand, it's instant. So I'm like, if companies are going to evaluate, their CTOs are going to evaluate for their company what's the best blockchain, they're not going to feel comfortable recommending Solana, Ethereum, or all the other ones, and they're going to feel more comfortable selecting Algorand. So those are some of the reasons. And I did like an online program. I think it was the Wharton Business School Economics of Blockchain program I did with them. And then literally all of the professors there all of the academic staff was like, Algorand's the one that's created in a way that they could actually be used. So I was very interested how Wharton's whole program was based around like how Algorand's going to be the next one being utilized. So that just added more to my conviction in that play. So yeah, and I think as a trader also, as an investor, you look at risk reward opportunities. You look at what's got the most upside potential with the most least downside potential. So when Algorand recently was like 10 cents, 11 cents, I'm like, okay, the low downside potential is like 11 cents, right? Or 10 cents. But the upside, if it just catches up to the market cap, which it should, in my opinion, to the top 5, then we're talking a pretty big return. So as an investment standpoint, that's why it stood out.
That makes sense, because when you talk about like for companies that are using it, one of the big ones is TravelX. You probably know about it. They're doing the NF tickets, airline tickets, and again, they would need something that's always online, that is always easy to use and fast, but also behind the scenes where it's not all up in your face in terms of a company. And then the Lofty AI as well, which does the real estate, tokenized real estate. When we spoke to them, Jerry was talking about the same thing. He was like, I need a blockchain. He didn't care what the name was and what it was, but a blockchain that works efficiently, instant finality, as you said, security wise, everything was there. So I see big businesses and institutions definitely only looking for those things, and it makes a lot of sense. Algorand is pumping right now, so it is feeling real good. You can see the crypto Twitter is a lot happier. The bear market was really tough. When I first got into crypto too, I found Algorand like sometime in 2021, early 2021. It was already at a pretty high price, and I remember buying it at 80 cents, $1. I was like, this is about to go higher than that. But at that time, there weren't a lot of use cases for it. Just a couple DeFi protocols, and half of them are gone now. Now, at this point, a few years later, Algorand is actually mature, in my opinion. And I think the foundation that is leading the way in terms of adding companies on and giving out grants are doing a great job. They also went through a hard time, but they're doing great now. So shout out to them. There was something you said on Twitter. It was that you had a Ferrari at some point, and then you were selling it, and then you bought some Algorand. Can you break down your reasoning behind that? And then, what made you just sell a Ferrari?
Yeah, so I was going to sell it anyway because I live in New York City and we barely get to drive because you find yourself taking Ubers anyway because you got to worry about parking and all of that. So I had a car. I drove it for a good, year or so, and then I was traveling. So I was in Thailand, and my car was just sitting there. COVID was still going on at that time. So my dealer called me. They're like, hey, no more Ferraris are coming in. So yours actually went up in price. So whatever you bought it for, I'll pay you like $20,000, $25,000 more than what you paid for it. So for me, I was like, well, I'm in Thailand. The car just sitting there, and I'm probably not going to be back for another few months. So I told him, just go and pick it up. And at that time, I think Algo was 30 cents or something like that. And I was like, I still like the opportunity here. So I said, you know what? When he gave me the funds, he wired me the funds, I just kind of put it in Algo. I think it was like 533,000 something Algo that it resulted into.
Wow.
So I bought that, and then I've been basically buying more since to get my average cost down, which is about 14, 15 cents now. And yeah, so it's looking great. It was kind of like a bet where I was like, I'm not going to trade in and out, but let me do this so I can, fulfill my FOMO. So I had a friend of mine when Bitcoin was $10. He Skyped me when Bitcoin was $10, like, hey, man, you should look into this thing. You should buy this thing. And I literally, no joke, sent him 5 lines of ha 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 LOL. Right? This is like many, many years ago. So he sends that to me, screenshot every day. So I was like, all right, this is my way I'm going to redeem myself. But no, I think just investment standpoint, it made sense. And the car was just like, I could always get it again. Not a big deal. So it was more like an investment that made a lot of sense to me. And I feel comfortable with the team because a lot of the crypto team I'm not comfortable with. Like their personalities, but I don't see that translating down the line when the industry matures. So you need a mature team. And I think with Silvio and the people behind Algorand and the background that they have, connections with academics, right, with academic institutions where CTOs would usually go for them for advice. So I think that where I saw that real world, Algorand would have an easier time onboarding real world use cases because the CTOs are going to feel, they're going to ask academics, hey, who do you think what should we use? And they're going to be suggesting or recommending Algorand. So I think that was, for me, a way to think about crypto as like I think I talked about it before, early stages of the internet, like where AOL was the first one who started it all, right? MySpace was the one that started it all. Great concept, revolutionary concept. But in the end, there's better, faster technology that comes play. And now we have Facebook and we moved on from the existing one. So I think
Yep.
majority of the cryptocurrency, at least the VCs or the investors, did all of their crypto research prior to 2019. So they still are used to the same old names of Ethereum, Solana, Bitcoin, and they haven't done any new research. And Algorand really only came into the picture 2019, 2020. So a lot of the people haven't done their research, but when they start looking at it now, right, and actually doing their due diligence, they're going to quickly realize that, oh, we've been missed out on this gem.
Yeah, definitely. Because same, like when you look at the Ethereum just in general, it still has the mind share, the market share. Then you got BlackRock and all the biggest institutions looking at Bitcoin. And then, Coinbase put out the Coin 50. Those two assets are still the largest. But I agree. We're now in what I think they call it the third generation of blockchains, even though crypto is 15 years of age anyway. But we're in the third generation. So that's the Cardanos, the Algorands, the Stellar Lumens, I believe. Those ones I saw when I first saw crypto, I was like, payment infrastructure makes the most sense to me. If you go, you travel, so you see that converting currency sometimes is annoying. You got all these different things that you got to do, and people are using wire transfers. And so I've done some wire transfers. Sometimes take 5 days, and I think that's ridiculous. But if you got a technology with Algorand embedded into it, it'd be instant. So I think that's the revolutionary change that we need. I believe spending USDC should be, or any type of stable coin that's a solid, should be what we should be doing in terms of going to the store or whatnot. Dollars are still good, but we need that digital dollar. So is there anything else, like any other thing else in Algorand that you like, that's bullishness that caught your attention other than what you mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, what I just saw recently, right? Hisab Pay in Afghanistan, 30% of their whole country's electric bills are paid using Algorand. And that's only going to grow because now they've got the infrastructure. Now it's all about, okay, how do we onboard the rest of the country? And if you believe that developing country is going to grow, right, which it will, then Algorand's kind of the base layer that's making it all function. So that's a big win. And then they're doing the similar things in India and Nigeria and all these places. So they're doing it right. I think majority of the crypto players are focused on solely on the US, which has a higher burden of the regulatory approvals and all of that stuff. But the biggest populations are in other countries like India, Nigeria, Afghanistan. So I think they're doing it the right way, where they're onboarding masses of population, which is going to result in more transactions, right? More fees being collected. And also more people are going to need to have a minimum balance in their algo accounts. So just by looking at how 82% of the supply has already been done, and you do the math on that, and then you see, okay, if all these populous countries gets onboarded and each wallet needs to have a minimum algo balance, then that's where the money starts to be coming in, right? Because there's only 10 billion. It's not like Solana or the others. They could just, add more. So I think just the cap supply, the supply already being 82% reached, and then people needing to hold algo for those transactions, I think that's what's going to create the demand. Because that was always my biggest, gripe with Bitcoin, is that with the exception of price wanting to go up and you want your money to, grow, there's not much utility there, right? I can't really see it being used. It's a little too slow. It's a little too expensive. So I can't see it being used, even with the Lightning Network and all that. I don't see it being used for the financial sector. It basically becomes like a digital gold where people just store their money. But long term, that is a bit scary for me, because that relies on people's belief. And people, as we know, their beliefs change over the centuries and the decades. So I always look at what's the use case, right? So with gold, that's the thing. If gold gets used, well, you need more gold. So there's inherent demand for gold. Whereas with algo, same thing, right? If algo is being used, if a majority of it's being locked up or whatever, and now people need to use it for transactions, they're going to need more algo. So there's inherent demand. And I think that's why I never invested in Bitcoin, even though, again, the price has gone up. But it's like, okay, what's the inherent demand? Who actually needs it? And that's the question that nobody's able to answer for me yet.
Yeah. Bitcoin is definitely the OG meme coin. People believe in it for whatever that reason is. And definitely I dabble in and out of Bitcoin, but I also agree. I didn't see what could you do with it? And that's what I like the utility coins. And even just the gas fee thing alone makes a lot of sense, because that's how the network moves. And then Bitcoin is, like we said, it's like Dogecoin on steroids in a sense. So It's kind of crazy. Speaking of Bitcoin, what is your thoughts with Bitcoin? Because it did almost hit 100K. We like at, I don't know, 97, 98,000 fluctuating in that zone. We see massive institutional adoption, and I believe some states are talking about a reserve currency. What's your thoughts there?
Yeah, so in terms of the price, I do see it continuing to trend higher. I think this beginning of this year when it was at 50,000 or whatever, I put a target of 88,000, so which obviously we're way ahead of that now. So the next target that I have is about $103,000. That's where I think it's headed to. And then, who knows from there on. But because of what's happening now with the administration, the positivity, right, the regulatory ease that's going to be on its way, I do see the trend being continued. And there's also an element of the FOMO that other funds have when they look at Michael Saylor and all these other people being a part of it. So I think that's what feeds Bitcoin, is like people don't want to be like even though people might have their biases, they're like, okay, let's say Bitcoin can be used, whatever. But long term, they're like, well, what if it does do what people say and we're not part of it? We're going to be looking stupid. So yes, I see that companies would want to maybe add it to their balance sheet just so that the investors know, okay, we have some exposure. So I do see, because of that, the price probably likely to going to continue higher, 120,000, maybe 150, maybe even higher. But again, when I look at investments I need to understand what I'm investing in. And I think that's one thing I've never been able to understand with Bitcoin. So I see more upside potential in stuff like Algorand. I mean, at 40 cents. So if Bitcoin goes from 100,000 to 200,000, you're getting 100%, which is awesome. But then the currencies that haven't yet performed, like Algorand, they could get that pretty quickly, right? We've already gotten 300% or so.
Yeah.
So from an investment perspective, I feel better about the investment, not just from the potential standpoint, but I can answer those investment questions. What's it going to be used for? What's my thesis? Why would people need to buy it? Why should the price go up? Why should it go up? Right? And nobody's able to answer that for Bitcoin except for, well, more people are going to need it. But why are they going to need it? I think those questions is what Algo answered for me. And I think that's why I chose to invest in that.
That's a great answer. Thank you for sharing that. Hope y'all paying attention. Y'all pay attention, take some notes about this. So when it comes to crypto, even the Algorand, that's a really good question for you. What's an exit strategy? When do you start to sell Algorand, or when do you start to sell some of these assets that you've been invested in terms of crypto?
Yeah, so for me, it's always been like I want to see Algo in the top 5 market cap. Right, when it gets there, then I would feel like, okay, it's maybe reached a potential. Now, from there on, it could still continue to go higher. But I think that's where the trade is for me, where once it gets to top 5, top 10 in market cap, then I'll reevaluate and see where I stand at that point. But like right now, it's so undervalued that I could easily see it catching up to the top 5 market cap in the next couple of years. So once it does that, then that's when I sit down and ask myself the question, okay, from here on, what do we see as the next potential being? Right. And then I still look at, okay, are they still onboarding real world use cases? Are the metrics in the blockchain still improving? Are the transaction counts and the active addresses going up? As long as fundamentally all of that is sound, then I think you could continue to hold on to it until you see a red flag. Maybe you see another cryptocurrency suddenly come into play, and that's not as the best technology or whatever, which I think it's hard to beat at the moment. But if something like that happens, or I see some other cryptocurrency being used more, or somehow they get the government stamp of approval or whatever, then those things might make me want to reevaluate. But at this point, I think we're still so early. And I think once it gets to top 5 market cap, maybe $5 plus an algo or whatever, then I'll reconsider. And maybe even then, I might just sell some of it to just take my original investment back so I can buy another Ferrari. and then I'll look at, maybe hold the rest for much longer term.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so let's jump over to Tesla now. I noticed Tesla is, again, back in the news, and it definitely because of Elon Musk jumping with Trump. That's a whole nother conversation. But I seen Tesla was, about 4 quarters of negative on the earnings, and it just hit a positive earning last earnings call. What do you like about Tesla, and what's your analysis on Tesla as a long-term investment?
Yeah, so majority of it would, start with technicals. So technically, obviously, we were in this massive sideways consolidation pattern, which is just called like a bull flag pattern, and the same pattern NVIDIA had, I think 2021 or so, before it ramped up and started its move up. So technically, Tesla had the same exact pattern as NVIDIA, like a consolidation flagging pattern, which was in a downtrend since 2020, and now we've broken above that. And I think so that's probably going to continue, technically. So that's the reason. Fundamentally, obviously, with the new administration, there's just a huge advantage for Tesla because with the Doge department, they're going to cut down the regulations. They're going to make it easier for people. And even Trump announced that they're going to try to fast track the full self-driving. They're going to build a separate department to fast track the approvals for their FSD. So I think all of the stuff that was the regulatory stuff was holding Tesla back is now going to be eased in the next 4 years. So that's a big, I guess, a political or legal advantage that they have. And then the other advantage is that if you look at the industry, right, if you look at the top players, the second place is so far out that even the second place is never going to catch up to the first place. And typically the second places in any industry are really close. Like you take Google, Microsoft, very neck and neck, right? But the second is Rivian, I think, right? And that is like leaps and bounds behind the volume of Tesla. So the second place has a huge differentiating factor. And I don't see long-term that's going to be viable for a second player to last because Tesla is just driving costs down so much, making it impossible for others to lower it because they're still in the R&D phase. So they're not going to be able to compete in cost. So I think a big cost advantage, the factories that they've built, big advantage in terms of materials, manufacturing that they have, and they got now a whole AI component to it. So I think Starlink and all these things coming together as an ecosystem give Tesla a very unique advantage in that. So I think, I think politically also, it's actually a good thing because typically conservative side would be considered the side who would not really want to embrace new technologies like EVs. But now with basically him being onboarded, because he already maxed out one part of population, right, which believes in climate change and all of that, and the others did not. So he did the perfect pivot politically to now get those people to buy Tesla as well, which, as we're seeing now, they're becoming more profitable. And I think it's going to be great. And I think, and that's just the car side of things. But I think full self-driving is where the money's at. The robo-taxis, all of that. That's like a whole new platform being built, like Airbnb, where your car can collect money while you're not driving it. So they are just, you add all these businesses on top. If you give full self-driving, even let's say a valuation of $100 a share, and you give Tesla, a car company, as a valuation of $100 a share, whatever, then you maybe give Optimus a valuation. So when you give all these pieces of business each own its valuation, then that's how you get to my target of about $420 something that I put in for 2025, and we might even get there before that. So I think those are some of the reasons.
That's a great breakdown because there is a lot of potential with all this new technology coming out. It's like we're definitely living in the future, and this stuff is moving faster than one could ever imagine. Because I remember Optimus was just a guy in a suit, remember? And that now he's coming to life. So that's amazing. And then with do you know if, like, say a Starlink, if something like that will go public eventually, or will it like merge with Tesla? You know anything about that?
I think it'll go public. So I have a few people that I know they're invested in it from I think valuation was 40-50 billion. Now I think the recent valuation was 150 billion. So yeah, I think they're going to keep doing it. They will definitely go public at some point. Now Tesla is going to own some of it or not. We'll have to wait and see on that part. But I do see that in the next three years or so, they'll probably go public.
Yeah. So yeah, big shout out to what Elon Musk is building over there. The Republicans, that side definitely loves those cyber trucks. I think those things are ugly, but they are. I'm seeing them out. I'm seeing them on the road. The scary thing is driving next to one because it feel like it could chop your car or something like that. But people are liking them. So
yeah, one with the matte black wrap. I mean, it's pretty. You got to give it. The natural ones, the
clean looking.
Silver. No, the silver one, I don't like that because it just looks messy. It looks dirty, because you have to clean it like every few minutes, But I think if you get a matte black wrap on it, I mean, it's perfect. I love the car. I would love to get one, but New York City, buying an EV in New York City still, they haven't built that infrastructure yet, So I think that's the issue there.
Yeah. So, but I think the Tesla cars look cool though. Like, definitely some, retro movie stuff that came to life. So I like the way those look. Is there any other assets that you're looking at, whether it be a crypto or a stock that, has you got a little research on, a little attention that you're looking at that might be interesting for the audience to go check out?
I think at this point it's a little bit tricky because if you had this conversation a few months ago, I would have ratted out a lot of different stocks because a lot of them hadn't really moved yet, and some of them I did talk about on my Twitter, like SoFi, Peloton,
Yep.
all the others that are Affirm, PayPal, that all went up like over 100% now. So right now I don't feel comfortable suggesting anything new. There's a lot of short-term trades I'm doing, but I'm wary of talking about them on podcasts because somebody might listen to it 2 weeks later and I'm already out of it by that point. But I think for now, long-term, I mean, Tesla, obviously, I'm going to hold on to. Algorand, I'm going to hold on to as well. And the newer stuff, mostly they're just trades for me. But as the sector, I'm watching the solar sector that's been beaten down a lot. So like some of the stocks are SEDG, Enphase, ENPH, and then the ETF as a whole, TAN, which is the solar market ETF, or ICLN, clean energy ETF. So I think those were underperforming for the last 3 to 4 years, but now they're kind of technically in a pattern where they're looking to find a bottom. So I think those are going to be the ones where I'm going to be kind of looking at for the next phase, next 3 to 4 months trade.
That's interesting. Yeah, solar was hot in like 2021. It was definitely had a lot of attention, and then it disappeared out the limelight. Okay. As we slowly start to close out, can you share with the audience where can they find you if they want to get some coaching or if they want to join any of your programs or whatever products and things that you got out there that can educate them?
Yeah, for social media, most active on Twitter and Instagram. My username on both of those is Delta90, DELTA99ETY. That's where you can learn more about me. And as far as other stuff that I do, you can always learn more about it on my website, unmol.net. And yeah, I mean, if you're interested in my book, I'd love to give your listeners a free copy of my book. They could just go to go.unmol.net, and they could just cover the shipping, and I'll send them a copy of my book, and that'll be a good way to get into my ecosystem and learn more about what we're up to.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Excellent. Real quick about your Twitter handle, Delta90. Is that for options?
Yeah, so I used to do a lot of like Delta 90 options back in the day.
Yeah.
So I made the username so long ago that now I can't change it really because it doesn't let you change it. So I'm stuck with that. But yeah, it's an option term.
That's what's up. All right, appreciate you. Thank you for dropping so many gems and great information on the podcast. If you stay backstage just for a moment, I'm gonna close out. Hey, y'all. So we had a very powerful episode with Anmol. Make sure y'all go check out his websites. And he also are gifting y'all a free book. You just covered the shipping. And he's a very knowledgeable person, obviously. So go check him out on Twitter, social medias, and everything. And we appreciate you for tapping in. This is C. Will with the Passive Income Network. Until the next episode, y'all. Peace. Passive income, passive income. Gold in my dental. Thank God for my mental. Investor fundamentals. Told my girl it was